heading into this offseason, they need our help. The 49ers, they got to be honest with themselves. They can't just say it was all Jake Moody's fault, even though I don't think they're going to even blame Jake Moody. So, what was the biggest issue on defense? Or what is the biggest issue on defense this year? Number one issue. What is it?
Lack of depth in the trenches. That's the way the defense is built. We run a wide 9, which is predicated on constant pressure on the quarterback. All right. It's not even really built to stop the run because of how far out they are. So schematically, you got to have fresh bodies in order to be able to basically two-gap from being a wide 9 defender. On top of it, with the wide 9, you got to have space eaters at those defensive tackles. Maybe, guys that are maybe over 6'4", maybe 6'5" defensive tackles, if you will. Wonder if we could ever get some guys like that on the defense. Those guys aren't there anymore. And what's happening is that offensive line is being able to get to the second level and beat up on our linebackers and actually impose on us. And just schematically, the defense doesn't have the right players. And it all starts with the defensive line, the trenches, the pass rush, and just the waves of depth that we haven't had. Not to mention that not only do we not have depth, but we're just not really versatile at all on defense, especially I'm going to stick with the defensive line. I don't want to take 10 points away, but just with the defensive line, like stunning, like twisting, being exotic, and being able to have multi-factored linemen that come in. We can't do that this year. And really, we just been surviving. I mean, right about now, Nick Bosa is a pass rusher where he's only Nick Bosa if he's playing 35 to 60 snaps a game. Once you get him up into that like upper echelon of where he's playing like the whole game, he's really just surviving. And that's just my biggest issue right now is that when we were good, everybody touted it. Our defensive line is unmatched. The waves of the depth that we have is unmatched, and it's just not there this year. We sold our depth for bad signings as well. I'm done.
Yeah, I think it's go ahead, Jess. You want to go?
No, go ahead.
I think it's the run defense. Whether that's the absence of Greenlaw, I think that's a part of it. But I think the coach is right. I just think it's a lack of talent. I don't know if the wide 9 is the best system anymore, particularly with the players that we have. And when your best player on the D line is Nick Bosa, who's not good at stopping the run, that's bad, right? Nick Bosa's not good at stopping the run, and then he's the best player on the defensive line. So everybody else that falls below him on the totem pole on the defensive line is also not good at stopping the run. They really struggled from a personnel standpoint, and I also just think it's the wide 9 in general. I'm just not a big fan of it. We don't have the personnel to run that, I don't believe. And you see that be the biggest problem for the 49ers this year. Started to become a problem last year in the playoffs. If Detroit would have kept running the ball on us, they'd probably win that game, but they went away from it. And they're just not who they used to be. And I think more than anything, though, I think Greenlaw is a big part of it, but I just think it's the personnel, even above the scheme, that's a problem. They just don't have talent there.
Yeah, I think it's philosophy. I think you can look at it from a multitude of different ways. You've got the wide 9, which I agree with. That's not something that this team should be running anymore. And if they are going to run it, they don't have the players to do so. They don't have any space eaters up the middle. They don't have any like true nose tackle, one text, anything like that. Like every player they have up front, you spread them out and you expect smaller defensive tackles to just eat up space. You're going to get gashed in the run game. And then when you go to the second level, even the secondary, as great as they've been, I feel like for the last 3 years, I've been thinking to myself, man, they've got to run more man defense than what they do, right? They can't continue to play this soft zone coverage because every single corner that they've drafted or brought in through free agency is a man corner. Travarius Ward, man corner. Deommodore Lenoir, man corner. Ambry Thomas was a man corner. Renardo Green, man corner. They brought in all these man corners, and then they continue to play soft zone behind a wide 9. It doesn't make any sense. You brought in Wilkes last year. You forced him to run the wide 9. The reason that you have Sorensen here is because he knows how to run that philosophy. It's time to change things up. Kyle Shanahan himself, the guys that beat him consistently are playing tough man defense, press man defense, and bringing exotic pressures. He does neither. So the philosophy has to change if they are going to get the best out of their players going forward, I believe.
To me, it's simple. It's a soft defense. We saw, and I think it goes back to Greenlaw. We saw how vicious this defense was with him. We saw the difference in the Super Bowl when he went down before and after. How easily the freaking Chiefs moved the ball compared to how difficult it was for them before he went down. And then we saw what the difference was in that game against the Rams. All of a sudden, the Niners were like the defense of old. So I think he ties the whole defense together. And I don't know that they'll ever have that Dre Greenlaw ever again for an extended period of time. But when he's on the field, that's a defense that's not only like good in coverage and has a good pass rush, like it'll hurt you. It's vicious. You're scared of them. And now I don't think anyone's scared of the Niners defense. Again, I think it's one of the softer defenses in the league. And with Greenlaw out there, it's freaking vicious. So I think they really screwed up in the draft last year, not addressing that position. They took Tatum Bell at the very end, but Bethune, not Tatum Bell, Tatum Bethune in the very end, but like they never really understood, I think, what Dre Greenlaw meant, because replacing him with Devondre Campbell, you needed to replace him with someone who was special. Remember when Kyle first became the head coach here, their second pick was Reuben Foster in the first round, and they thought he was going to be who Dre Greenlaw ended up becoming. So if that role is that important to your team, and I think it clearly is, they got to address it this offseason. They can't just cross their fingers and hope that Dre Greenlaw never hurts a calf or an Achilles or a knee or again. Because if he does, that's gravy. But at this point, it's an important position and you haven't filled it. And without it, you're soft.
One of my worries, I was looking at the team today, is with a quarterback like Brock Purdy, this does relate to the defense, I promise. But with a quarterback like Brock Purdy, if you look at the quarterbacks that are kind of like Brock Purdy that actually won Super Bowls over the last 21 Super Bowls, they had great defenses. Jimmy got to the Super Bowl because of how great that defense was. If the 49ers don't fix their defense, particularly their run defense, I'm even more down and out on this team making it back to the Super Bowl. They have to fix it. It's a must.
Because you got to get in shootouts. That's what that means.
Yeah.
You get a good defense where you could play complementary football and you don't put your quarterback in bad positions. He's never playing outside of his frame. So that's why those quarterbacks make it, because the defense allows you to play, within the offense.